This video is going to show you how to create a Qualtrics survey. Qualtrics is where you will create all of your surveys for Way to Health. So this will include anything from a screening eligibility survey to a baseline demographic survey to any midpoint surveys, and as well as the informed consent. Now the first thing you will want to do is contact the Way to Health operational team to create a Qualtrics account for you if you don't have one already. They will email you out the credentials and then you'll be able to log in. The first time that you log in, you will see one survey shared with you, and that's the Way to Health template 2016. It says copy only. Every single survey that you create in Qualtrics and that you want to be pulled into Way to Health must be copied off of this template. So how do we do that? So we're going to take this template and we're going to go over to the drop down and we're going to say copy project. Great. Now we're going to want to rename our survey. So today we're going to create a baseline survey for the demo site. So I'm going to call it Demo Baseline Survey. And I'm going to copy the project. Great, and so now you'll see our new survey here, so I'm going to click into it. And when you click into it, now you'll be able to start adding your questions. So let's go over some of the question types. So you're going to want to click this drop down here, and it's going to say create new question. So the first thing that I want to ask in my survey is gender. So I'm going to start typing here. And then I'm going to list my choices. So my first choice is male, and then Qualtrics is great because it will auto-populate if it thinks it knows what your other choices will be. So it just populated female for me. Great. So now what I want to do is go in and add race. And I'm going to add an extra option here for other. Now, if you want the person to be able to say what the other category is, you will go to this drop down and you're going to say allow text entry. I'm going to expand this out so that way the person can include another nationality if they would like. Great. And so these are considered multiple choice questions, and Qualtrics will default to multiple choice. You can add additional choices on the right here. You can also allow multiple answers. So right now it's single answer, they can only choose one race, but if you wanted them to be able to choose more than one, you could also do that with multiple answer. Okay, now let's do something a little bit more complicated. Again, we're going to do a multiple choice. So we're going to ask them, what do you have a smartphone? So if the answers are yes and no, and we want to get rid of that bottom choice. Great, so that was easy, but now we want to display a question based off of that answer. So I want to know if they select yes to the smartphone question, Then I want to ask them if they have an iPhone or Android. So I'm going to add another question underneath here. And my options are going to be iPhone or Android or Windows Phone. Great, now we only want to display this question if yes is selected here. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to add what we call display logic, which you can select over here on the right. So this is how we do that. So if question, and then we have to choose what question. So the question is, do you have a smartphone? Is yes, it's selected, then we're going to display what kind of smartphone. So as you can see, this question is only displayed if the person says that they have a smartphone. Okay, let's do another type of question besides a multiple choice. Let's do a slider. So we want to ask them what their level of pain is today. We only want one choice. And we want the min value to be 0 and the max value to be 10. So we're going to say pain level today. And then here I'm just going to be a little bit more descriptive. And that's how you do a slider question. Now let's add a fill in the blank question. Sometimes these are used to capture different kinds of dates. So if they have to go for an in-person weigh-in, date of in-person weigh-in. And we're going to want to change this to a text entry. Now, to make sure that the person, the participant or the research coordinator, depending on who's filling this out, puts in the correct format, we're going to want to validate this question. That way they can't just type anything in this box. So that what we do for that is we're going to come over here and we're going to do this content validation. So I select that, and then over here on the right you'll see some options. So we're going to want to select date and then the formatting of the date. And that will require the person filling this out to put the date in this format noted here. And sometimes what I'll do here is just give a little bit of a guide to whoever is filling it out so they know what format it needs to be in. Great. So in general, Way to Health supports these top sections. So static content and standard questions. Way to Health does not support these specialty questions in advance, so we tend to stay away from those. If you wanted to add instructional text before the survey or anywhere in the survey, what you can do is you can do that with just a descriptive text box. So, and as you will see, every question has a number assigned to it. Now, if it's a question, we need to do what we call is recoding these values, and as well as renaming the question. So we usually just try to come up with something short for renaming the question. So this I'm just going to call sex, and then we're going to do that for all of the questions. Race, phone, type, pain, and weight. And so this will be important when you're exporting these survey results. You'll know what question correlates. And it will also be easier when you're viewing it in Way to Health. So now let's go in and code these. So what this is going to do is it's going to assign a value to each response. So right now we just have male and female, but we need to assign numerical responses or numerical values so that the data analysts know what number corresponds with what answer. So you'll click recode values. If they say a male, it'll be a 1. If they say female, it'll be a 2. And you're going to do that for all of these questions. Now you'll see when we get to the fill in the blank, you can't recode that answer. So it's only for these selected answers. And then this one, I forgot, you don't have to recode because it already is a coded value. And then this one you'll see you also cannot recode a fill in the blank. Great. So how about validating? So we validated this question, which was a content validation. You can see making sure that they put in the date, but how about validating and making sure people actually respond to the questions? So for something like a baseline survey, we usually make most questions request response, meaning prompt them if they leave it blank, but we usually don't make them required. However, for something like a screening survey where you need to know if the participant is actually eligible or not, you're going to want to force a response. So you're going to do this for each question in your survey. So for example, what is your gender? You're going to come over here and you'll see the options are request response and force response. So since this is a baseline survey, I'm going to say request response, just reminding them if they accidentally keep going past this question that they missed it if they'd like to go back and fill it out. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this question. And then for this question, let's say you have to have a smartphone in order to be in the study, so we want to make sure that you actually fill out this question. I'm going to make this a forced response, meaning that they cannot move forward in the survey until they answer it, and so on and so forth. And you're going to do that for each one of your questions if you would like to request a forced response. If you don't add that in, the participant will be able to move forward with the survey without any kind of prompt. Okay. So now, if you recall us recoding the values, what you're going to want to do is when your survey is done, you're going to want to export the survey to Word. And this will create what we call a data dictionary. So it's going to show you all of your questions as well as the coded values. So you'll see here, what is your gender? Male is that 1, female is 2, and so on and so forth. And your data analyst might ask you for this when it comes time for analysis. So you'll want to save these somewhere, but they can always be pulled from Qualtrics. Okay. So now that you have your survey complete, you have your data dictionary. One final thing to note that you can do is if you are creating this survey based off of questions that you want to pull from another survey, you can import questions from. So you can go to your surveys and say I want to pull some previously selected questions from another survey, I can go ahead and do that here, and I can just select a couple of questions, or I can import the entire survey. So that way you don't have to do duplicate work. You can also preview your survey, so this is something we recommend doing to make sure that your validation and your display logic and all of your questions are formatted the way that you would like them to be. And you'll also see how it will look to the participants. So you click Preview Survey. It will show you how it will look on mobile device. So here you go. You're going to select your gender. We're going to see what happens when we leave race blank. And the survey prompted me, oops, I forgot to answer the question. Let me go back. And because we said we had a smartphone, it prompted us to ask us what type of smartphone we have. So let's try putting in a date that isn't in the right format. And this is how you will put in a survey. Okay, so now that your survey is done and you've previewed it, you're going to want to go ahead and activate it because now it's ready to add to Way to Health. So you're going to go back to the My Projects page. You'll see your survey here. You'll see it's still listed as new. We need to change it to active. So you're going to click Activate here. And then you're also going to want to collaborate this survey with anyone else who works on your project. So if you are the research coordinator and you have another research coordinator that you're also working with, so you can both look at it, view it, you're going to want to share the project. So you'll type in their email address or their username or email address here and it will come up. You'll add them and you'll give them the appropriate permissions. And you'll click Save. And that will add them to the survey, and then when they log into their Qualtrics account, they will see it there. Great. Now the next thing that you're going to want to do is go to Way to Health, because now your survey is activated, you've collaborated it, and it's all ready to go. So you're going to go over to Way to Health. On the Manage Study tab, you're going to go to Surveys. And you'll see we already have our informed consent in here. We already have our screening survey. Now, if this is your first time adding surveys, you're going to first need to configure a Qualtrics account by clicking this button, and it's going to prompt you for your Qualtrics username and password. So this is why it's important to share your surveys with anyone else who's on the team, so that because there's only one Qualtrics account linked to each study, if they need to go ahead and add in a survey, they can easily access it. So let's go ahead and add our baseline survey. And when you go to the survey ID, you're going to see all the surveys that you have in Qualtrics. So I'm going to select that demo baseline survey, and I'm going to click Add. So now these buttons, now that it's added, if I click here, this will take me to the survey in Qualtrics. If I select preview, then I can see those coded values and what questions are in the survey. And I can see when it was last updated. And then if I go back, I'll see all my surveys listed here. Now this reset button is really important. So one of the limitations with surveys and Way to Health and using Qualtrics is that once a survey has launched and you need to edit your survey, let's say you decide you need to add in a new question in the eligibility screening, unfortunately you cannot just go into this original baseline survey and add in a new question in Qualtrics, because that would require you to reset the survey in order to pull in that new question. And by doing that, what you will do is you will eliminate all the feedback that's built onto that survey. And it will also hide all of the responses to that baseline survey to date. So instead, what you'll want to do is copy this survey in Qualtrics using the Way to Health template first, and then pulling those questions in from the baseline survey. And then you'll activate it, and you'll name this Baseline Survey 2016 V2. So this V2 is going to have that additional question, and you'll pull it from your drop down. And what you'll be able to do is then swap out this V2 with the original version of this survey. Now, while you're still in the testing and building phases, it's okay to reset these surveys. Just be cognizant that the feedback will be deleted, so you'll have to go back in and add it back in. One other thing to note with Qualtrics surveys is that you should not be adding any kind of PHI. So that includes name, date of birth, MRN, anything that would identify a participant. And this is all going to be collected in Way to Health, so it shouldn't need to be collected in the survey anyway. You're also going to want to build your informed consent in Qualtrics. So you will see I've already added my informed consent here. So how this looks in Qualtrics is I'm going to open up the informed consent that I've already created. And you're just going to copy and paste. You can do this from Word, the actual informed consent document into a text graphic type of question. So I separated it out into a couple of different questions just because it's so long. And these aren't actually questions, it's just text. And then at the end, I'm going to add one question, one multiple choice question, just asking them to see if they would like to participate or not. And you're going to pull this into Way to Health, just like you do your other ones. And again, if you ever need to update your informed consent throughout the study process, you will just create V2, V3, V4, etc. and pull them into Way to Health and swap them out. And in a later video, we will explain to you how to build feedback on these surveys. So for example, if a person screens out, how do we set up that feedback? And that's it for building a Qualtrics survey.